It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You could find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you go to my website, emailrevealer.com, or just if you email me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. And if you go to Spreaker.com and you Google Ron Chepesiuk, our guest previously, we had him on previously, mostly about some controversy about the around the Jeffrey Epstein tapes, but we have him back. The guy's got a lot going on. You go to ronchepesiuk.com to check out. He's got a radio show every Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Crime Beat with Ron Chepesiuk. It's at artistfirst.com. You could find it there. Brand new book. The guy's got like 20 books, 50 books, who knows. But the brand new book sounds fascinating. Bad Henry, The Murderous Rampage of the Taco Bell Strangler. And he's got a TV series right now. You can catch it right now if you subscribe to VIX, V-I-X. Periso Blanco. It's a Spanish station. It's a TV series. It's about the Carlos Later, the notorious drug smuggler. And I just found out they just let him out of prison talking about Ron Chepesiuk. Ron Chepesiuk, are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for coming back.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Remind the audience, who is Ron Chepesiuk?
Who is Ron Chepesiuk? Okay. I'm a writer, I guess, freelance writer, screenwriter, producer, director, and I have a publishing company, streetcommunitybooks.com, and I'm a former professor of library science at a university in South Carolina, and I've been freelancing full-time for about 20 years. I've published about 42 books and about 4,000 magazine, newspaper, and internet articles. And I've got about 6 or 7, I have to look at again, 6 or 7 scripts optioned. And about 4 of them are in development right now, various stages of development. And I lucked out. I got this option on my Carlos Later book from Caracol TV network in Colombia, South America, and they optioned it, and they did a great job, and they produced a 30-part TV series on that, and I'm busier than hell, and I appreciate being here on the show.
Yeah, I was going to say 42 books. You must be writing notes as we talk, right?
Well,
another book.
I was thinking about that today, and I said, I didn't write my first book till I was 35.
Yeah.
And so it's been more than like a book a year, and since then, and I was mainly a magazine writer, and actually you can make more money writing magazine articles than you can writing books. But then I decided I wanted to freelance full time, and I did a book on gangsters of Harlem, and this turned me into a crime writer, and I got all these ideas for books, and I started producing crime books, and I ended up on radio talking on various the ID channel, Investigative Discovery, Discovery Channel, Biography, History, and Black Entertainment Network, and so I developed this reputation, and once you get the reputation, you pretty well have to stick with it because that's what you're known for.
Gangsters of Harlem. Ron Chepesiuk doesn't know this, but my former partner, Bobby Harris Sr., was the cop who arrested Nicky Barnes for bribery.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Right there. Yeah, it's a small world, right?
Yeah, he's profiled in my book, of course.
I'm sure, yeah.
On that, and it's an interesting, he's an interesting guy. He's dead now.
Yeah.
But it took several years before they found out that he was dead because he was in a witness protection program on that, but he passed away a couple of years ago.
Have you ever heard the recording of him negotiating with the SDNY about his partners were supposed to be doing things for him, but they were doing things against him, and he wanted he wanted revenge against him?
Yeah, he got revenge because of his wife. She was messing around with one of the guys, and he was in prison, and he thought disloyalty was a bad thing, and so he turned against him, became a snitch, and a really big snitch too.
Yeah, shortly after that call, 2 white guys went in there and killed his enemies. Any idea what happened there?
Yeah. That's right.
RonChepesiuk.com. Okay, tell us about Bad Henry, the murderous rampage of the Taco Bell Strangler. Now, was he actually strangling them with tacos?
No. No, he worked in fast food industry, and he several of his victims worked with him in the Taco Bell, the restaurant, the Mexican fast food restaurant. And so the press, of course, always looking for gimmicky nicknames, and they gave him the nickname of the Taco Bell Strangler. So that's how I got the title on that. And Bad Henry, that's what he called himself, Bad Henry, in a quote on that. And so I put that together, and I got my title.
Henry Louis Wallace. Okay, tell us, who was this guy? Tell us about this guy.
Well, he was born in 1965 in November 4th in Barnwell, South Carolina, and it's a little town, about 6,000 people, half black, half white, in South Carolina, and he was very interesting. I interviewed people that knew him, and they were shocked to find out that he was a serial killer, because he had this sort of double life. He lived in this really poor, absolutely poor. There was no indoor plumbing at all, and he had to carry out a bucket of excrement every day that the family made. And he had a sister, Yvonne, and he had a mother, Lottie Mae, and she was a very nasty woman. She didn't have much success with men. She didn't like her life, and she took it out on her kids. She beat them, called them weird names, dressed up Henry in a woman's, a young girl's outfit, and had him parade through the neighborhood. The neighborhood was kind of bad too, because he was molested when he was young by some of the young girls, and he developed this really intense subliminal hatred of women, and it came out later on when he would kill these women on that sort of thing. But he went to school, and he belonged to the 4-H council. He was a cheerleader on the school. I talked to one of the cheerleaders that knew him, and she was shocked that he was a serial killer. She said he was the nicest guy. He would listen to their problems. He would talk with them. He drove the school bus, and his grades were pretty good. And then he'd go home to this secondary life, and nobody knew that he was living this, sort of double life. Abject poverty, and then a normal high school existence.
You mentioned the poverty in North Carolina. People have no idea, man. I took some trips through the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I saw parts of North Carolina and West Virginia. All that, yeah. Man, some of these places you can't. The whole town's on meth, in some of these towns.
Yeah, right. Economically, the South's always been poorer than the rest of the country. But if you were black, it's even worse.
Yeah, some of these towns are just incredible. So, and you just said that he was molested by the neighborhood girls. Yeah.
When he was, like 4 years old, this girl about 7 put herself on top of his body. I don't know if she knew what she was even doing, but he told us later to a psych counselor when he was arrested and all that sort of stuff. This all came out on that. But anyways, it was a very subliminal, troubled history that he was living. And his mother would dress him up as a girl and make him walk up and down the street. Yeah, as a punishment. Right, and then she would beat him regularly. She would call him names, and she was tired. She'd have his sister and him beat each other up. Oh my God! On that then, but he had this strange attraction to her. He was really to his sister, devoted to her, sort of devoted to her, and she would follow him all over the place. He was supposed to have had a relationship with a girl in Charleston, South Carolina, and she found out, and she wanted to find out who the girl was. She's going to tell him to stay away from my boy, and all that. So he grew up, very troubled, and of course this is all hidden, from the public, and they all thought he was a nice guy. He's a really, really good-natured, friendly, sympathetic guy that listened to your problems, and they didn't know the difference. And hey, real quick, what age was he when they were dressing him up and making him walk up and down the street? Oh, he was probably in his early teens. Really?
Because I'm looking at his age. He was born in 65. I was born in 62. So I'm only a little bit older than this guy. And I can't imagine, at that time, in my teen years, that the parents were still doing that kind of abuse to their kids. It was more common.
Like I said, she had bad relations with men, and she took it out on her kids. And she worked in a textile mill, and made barely enough money to make ends meet. And they lived in just a small little shack with no indoor plumbing. Can you imagine that?
Oh, yeah.
And he had to carry the excrement out every day.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw those houses. And some of these places, there's garbage, trash strewn all over their front lawns. And this is how they live.
Exactly.
Now,
right.
Did he have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, he had a sister. Yvonne. And they got along okay, and they both suffered abuse at the hands of Lottie Mae, the mother.
Now, when he started these murders, how old was he when he started doing these killings?
Well, he started the murders in the first murder was committed in 1990, and on that then, so he was 26, 25, 26 years old, and what happened was he had this thing for this young girl, and her name was Tanisha Bethea, and he would see her, talk with her. She was a little bit younger than him. Henry's mother worked with Tanisha's mother in the textile factory, and one day she agreed to go with him, and he took her out to the lake, and he put the make on her, and she got upset, and she threatened to turn him in, and then she saw the expression on his face, and she sort of tried to renege her threat, and but it was too late. He ended up strangling her and dumping her body in the lake. And it was really really clumsy effort, because he was one of the last people seen with her, and the cops caught on to him. I mean, they had him as a suspect from very early on after the murder. I talked with a couple of police that were investigating him, and they said that they knew he did it, but they couldn't prove it on that sort of thing. And at that time, his life was falling apart. He had married a woman in 1985, and his marriage was falling apart. He got arrested for breaking into the radio station where he was working. He was a disc jockey, pretty good one, from what I understand, on that sort of stuff. And so he decided to get out of Dodge, and he left. And of course, the cops couldn't hold him, because he never had anything to hold him on. And so he ended up in Rock Hill, my city, right here where I live, Rock Hill, South Carolina. And he got into trouble here. He was accused of sexual abuse with a woman, and again he moved to Charlotte, where he settled down on that. And he always seemed to sense when trouble was moving in on him, and he would move. He did that in the military. He had joined the military in the late 80s, and he had gotten into trouble there, and actually ended up in probation for breaking into a hardware store on that sort of stuff. But he got out of the Navy, and actually got a good commendation from the Navy, which was really amazing, given his criminal record on that. So he ended up in Charlotte, and then the first murder that he did was sort of atypical. He picked up this prostitute, Sharon Nance, and she demanded money for her services, and it made him ballistic. He went off the deep end, and he ended up strangling her. And the police found the body, but there was no connection at all. I mean, she was a prostitute, and she had several Johns and all that, so they couldn't do anything. And the police at that time were very, very overworked. They were criticized for their way they handled the Bad Henry investigation, but there was only like seven detectives handling homicide cases, and in 1993. It was the biggest number of murders in Charlotte history, with 129, and so they all each had like several cases each, and they didn't really talk to each other, so they didn't know what each other was doing, and Sharon Nance just became another narcissistic, and so that encouraged